Hey everyone, welcome to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird.
I'm Mahalo.
And I'm Fuego.
We are here to fulfill a Patreon request from Mikey Mnemonic to talk about BAM! Godzilla 1984/1985, if you watch that version. I actually didn't know what version to watch, so I just, because I couldn't find the 1985 version with Burr in it.
Harry Mason himself.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he was in the original too, right?
Yeah,
the Americanized version.
Yeah.
So that's what was. I found that out watching that history special, and I was like, so they okay. I never knew that. That is not included in this. Yeah. So this is the actual original Japanese version restored. So it's supposed to be better. There's supposed to be a little more Godzilla, but we're gonna get into it, guys, and I will say that this was, or at least that version, the 1985 version with Burr, was my first Godzilla movie ever. Same. I saw it as a kid, and my parents actually, there's a few movies that I remember watching with my parents during, like, family dinner. Like, my mom would whip up stir-fried chicken, and then we'd all go to the living room, which was also the TV room, and we'd eat, and I remember Godzilla 1985, I remember Rocky 4, and I remember like another one that's escaping me right now. But yeah, this was one that either was in heavy rotation or just landed big for me as a kid. I loved the giant monster aspect of it. So like Jaws got me into creatures, but this had to have gotten me into giant creatures. Unfortunately, as an adult, I can't take suit-wearing Godzilla anymore. I just can't. It's so silly to me. When the feet step down and the toes like wiggle on the suit, and it's like the toes don't actually connect with the ground. It's just the heavy pad. I'm like, this lost its impact, you know? But as a kid, it did what it was meant to do, and now I act that same way in Godzilla King of the Monsters that just came out. You know, now I'm like, that's what I wanted. So, like, that is what I pictured this as when I was young. Like, I filled in all the details. So, as a kid, I liked this movie a lot. As an adult, it was boring to me. Very, very boring. And minus Burr, there was no real emotional hit to me. Like, I felt so bad for Godzilla with Burr's voiceover, talking about, you know, how I can't even remember the specifics, obviously, but it was like, you know, this was a force, but man was a greater force, and he's, you know, has to jump into the freaking, or he's forced into the volcano at the end. And so I was really sad. This just didn't have that impact to me. So that's my overall thoughts, as long as they are. Mahalo, what about you?
I mean, as an adult, this movie really doesn't hold up to the times, but this is an important movie in the Godzilla series and all. It kicks off the Heisei series, which other people will know as the Versus series. This is where you get Godzilla versus Ghidorah, Godzilla versus Mothra, Godzilla versus Biollante, Godzilla versus all and so on and so. And it creates its own little mini-verse back before even Avengers had done things like that, where each movie carried over, every event had carried on, and it's literally a sequel to the 1954. So it's a completely separate Godzilla creature than the one that was in 1954. It's also the first time they established Godzilla as a force of nature and not just something that man created. They kind of create him as an something to sympathize with. They make him an anti-hero later on. He still destroys Tokyo. You can't destroy Tokyo without being Godzilla. And you take a step, there goes Walmart. It's a super important movie as far as the Godzilla franchise goes. There's a lot of politics that go on in this movie. Even in the remake and the 1985 and the 84, they just switch scenes out. The 85 makes a little more sense because not everything's happening at once. The ball's in the air with 84. You got the Russians, the Americans, and the Japanese all doing everything at once. There's a couple things in 85, like the Pentagon scene makes no sense. They're just Americanizing it. But I like the Japanese version just because it's a little more traditional. It's a little more pure.
Okay. Fueguissimo.
Yeah, to piggyback on the politic aspect, as far as overall enjoyment of this film and just overall impressions, that was what I found the most fascinating, was just the idea of, okay, should Japan use nukes, you know, when they were destroyed by nukes to save their country? It was like a really interesting paradigm and just, you know, problem that the Russians and the Americans are pressuring them to do at one particular point in that, like, war room scene of sorts. And I mean, but aside from that, I'm gonna kind of echo your sentiments, man. I did enjoy the fact that there was more like expressiveness to the face of the Godzilla creature in this. Like, you saw it having like emotions as opposed to being stuck on the same whatever weird face the whole time, but it's still very obviously a person in the suit. And so for that reason, it did pull me back, and I felt like the acting was not particularly compelling, and the weird side story of, you know, the boat and, you know, discovering the guy and all the crew has been killed and stuff. I guess we'll get to that in story here, which is
one of the few things they kept in the 85 version, because that's one of the only things I remembered.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess that is a decent segue into story, and the fact that, you know, when there is that reemergence of Godzilla, it correlates with this boat actually being attacked by these little crustacean-y kind of creatures, I guess, and there's one still remaining on the boat when it's discovered, and that guy is like practically catatonic, the lone survivor, and then, you know, he hooks up with what this brother and sister duo of sorts, and he kind of has feelings for one of them, and it just turns into just the whole back and forth thing of just trying to either protect Godzilla and see his perspective, and yet because he does come to attack at one particular point and then leaves, and I don't know. It just really boils down, as far as the compelling aspects to me, to be the political just paradigm of all of this, and nothing else really compelled me as far as the human interaction in this, as far as the story goes. So
yeah, story for you, Mahalo?
The story for me is it's all the politics, everything's in the air for the 84 again. Everything's happening at once. The American version kind of slows it down and takes each piece at a time. But for me, the most important thing of this thing is that it kicks off the Heisei series, which in my opinion is the best Godzilla, because this is the smallest this Godzilla will ever be is in 1984. He grows to almost 300 feet in height by the end of Godzilla and Godzilla vs. Destroya, which is the last movie in the entire series. So if anything, this should segue you into Godzilla vs. Biollante, which is my opinion the best Godzilla out of the entire series.
I've never seen that one.
That one's amazing. If you ever have a chance, watch that one. That one, they took 84 and everything that was wrong with it, and they went a little bit better. They went bigger. They went more mad scientist with it. And they brought in these things called G-cells. We could talk about that for days. I could do that forever. But 84, it just doesn't hold up to the times. But it is a cool, nostalgic jump back into Godzilla to get you started into the Versus series. Because it's just like the Avengers. You watch Godzilla 84, then Biollante, then King Ghidorah, and so you keep going on. And everything carries on. And that's the best part about it, is it jumpstarts the series. We all agree that Iron Man was awesome. The first Iron Man movie was awesome. But if it was just by itself, it would just be an awesome movie. Because it's extended into its own universe, makes it even better. And that's what 84 is for the Godzilla-verse.
Fair. Okay, that's a fair comparison. Without the benefit of having seen the rest of them, I don't have that as a basis for judgment.
Yeah, me neither.
So I am left with just this, and the story was just too slow for me, too boring. I guess I'm just I don't dive as deep as maybe the Japanese filmmakers would prefer that I did while watching a giant rubber monster movie.
Yeah, and I mean, they went pretty heavy on the romance in this too, and I don't know.
It doesn't hit for me in these.
No,
it's like it always seems forced. We make fun of our big monster movies when they try and cram a romance into it now. So when you see movies that did it back then, it's just like, oh, it's this.
See, that's what makes me laugh about Godzilla King of the Monsters, the new one that came out, is the human interaction was terrible. But it was the same thing in every Godzilla movie. It was at least, the human interaction was terrible in both of the new movies.
It's never been.
But that's not what the point of a Godzilla movie is. Exactly. So that's why I didn't like the 2014, is because they got the human stuff wrong and they got the Godzilla stuff wrong. But the new one, they at least got the monster stuff right.
That was good.
You know what I mean? So
yeah.
So let's talk about. I mean, the acting. I guess we can mention briefly. It's just when it comes to movies of a different culture, and especially older movies of a different culture, I find myself having a hard time going against the acting, and being like, oh, this was bad, because I don't know. Maybe this is what their culture thinks is really good. Maybe that's what they find engrossing. I didn't find it particularly good, but it could have also been script reasons. It was a boring script to me. So I didn't latch on to any of the characters. If Burr had been in it, then I know I would have latched on to him, because I did when I was a kid. Yeah. But in this one, I had no one.
Well, he has that amazing speech at the end, too, and that speech goes hand in hand with Godzilla falling into the volcano.
Absolutely. And so seeing it without it, it felt hollow.
Yeah. Same for me. Yeah, with that being my first, not only impression of Godzilla, but of this film in general. And I was trying to remember if it was called 85 or if it was called Godzilla Returns, because
it's had name changes.
It's had various name changes. Okay. Yeah,
I remember it being Godzilla 1985. Okay. That's what I remember, and I remember the box being Godzilla and then 1985 with a little line underneath on both sides of the number. But I know it was renamed later Godzilla Returns, because I think that's what it was called in Japan, no?
It was Return of Godzilla.
Return of Godzilla. So yeah, they They just kind of adapted the name to America later.
I do
to try
remember
and capitalize
those
with it.
additional American scenes being a lot goofier as far as the acting went, and just kind of like they hammed it up sort of thing.
Well, they just tried to shove as much Americana into it as possible because it was a Japanese-filled movie, and at that point in time in the 80s, there still was kind of that little hint from the Red Scare and what's going on with Japan, so that's why they tried to put all the politics into it.
Well, yeah, and with the Russians being like, I mean, granted the Americans are pressuring them to use nukes as well, but I feel like the Russians being the baddest were definitely portrayed in the most negative light in those scenes, you know, so... I don't know.
So let's talk about the effects.
Man in a rubber suit.
Yeah, it's a rubber suit movie.
Slightly
and
improved, though.
What's so funny is, again, when I'm a kid, 1985, so I must be watching this on TV in 1986 or 87, right? And
grainy tube screen TV.
Grainy tube screen. Well, my dad prided himself on having the highest end of tube TVs.
Did he have Laserdisc?
No, he never went Laserdisc because he had other issues to deal with when that came around. But he was the guy, because he was a doctor at the time, so we had like a TV, like a little TV in the kitchen with rabbit ears, and then the big TV in the main room, and he had a TV in the office and stuff. So he loved TV. So, you know, I don't even remember where I was going with this point before we went off on the TV tangent.
Oh, well, we were just talking about the effects.
Special
and
effects,
how
thank you.
maybe
So,
they
at
don't
the
look
time...
as bad on...
Oh yeah, no, but it's not even about the clarity of picture.
That's what
it's the way the buildings crumble. And at the time when you see an entire, you know, 8-story section of wall pop out like it's, you know, cardboard, you're not like thinking about that, and then you see it nowadays and you're like, that's not how buildings crumble. That's not how buildings crumble at all.
That's not physics. That's 100% not physics.
No, I think they're built by brick, not cardboard slat by cardboard slat.
Do you really have any idea how buildings crumble? I don't know.
Jesus.
My favorite are always the toy tanks and the toy cars that jaggedly move as they drive.
Yeah. So, I mean, the effects are what they are. They're improved on the original Godzilla.
Yeah.
What I genuinely noticed, though, was the fact that Godzilla, as opposed to being, like I said earlier, the same just frozen expression on the face, they did, like, you saw eye movement and different, like...
lip curling.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
well,
like, you could tell where it got angrier. You could tell, I mean, there was an improvement to the design in the 30 years.
This is, like, as I harkened on it before, that this is where Godzilla develops into a character that humans can relate to. I mean, later on in the series, there's more things, even more psychic reasons. It's crazy.
They do bring psychics into
the craziness of Shin Godzilla and how he evolves over the course of the movie. That's nuts.
That's essentially what
I couldn't get into it because it's so weird.
No, like, Shin is strange. There's a whole lot of Godzilla adaptations that are strange. Godzilla Earth, for one, is extremely strange. The anime.
Oh yeah, no, I watched that. That was terrible.
That was
so bad. It was basically,
like another planet.
Yeah. It was three of the most boring animated movies you'll ever watch in your life.
I love Godzilla, so I tried.
I tried because I was like, yes, dude, animated stuff, they can do so much more. It'll be so cool because you're not limited to budget. And then they had Godzilla because he's so huge. He literally just moves like this. That's as fast as he moves, and you can't build suspense with that. Yeah. Yes, his beam is destructive as shit in it, but that's so boring. It's so boring.
It was absolutely terrible. But back on this,
Back to 84. I mean, music and score, sound effects, is there really much else to?
Well, they had Akira come back and do the original scores for him. So they had the original guy come back and do it. And
I do like the Godzilla score. The yeah,
it's so drastic. It's scary. It's actually terrifying. If you just had that music playing,
ominousness to it.
It is like a Jaws theme in Japan, pretty much.
You hear that, and kids in Japan who are still in the womb know what's going on. They know Goji's coming.
We're being attacked.
I can't remember.
Mom, get out of here!
And the signature screech too. I mean, it's ever iconic.
Oh, of course,
immediately distinguishable for any fan of like horror, sci-fi creature movies in general.
And again, this screech particularly is probably the first one I remember being exposed to. So that's what Godzilla should sound like to me.
Yeah,
Oh, that's terrible.
What was that?
Technically, it's Skreonk. If you ever read a Godzilla comic book,
Is that right?
it's
That's how they-
Skreonk.
I think you're right. I
Yeah,
think you're right.
it's Skreonk.
Did you read the Godzilla Goes to Hell?
Yeah, that's an
Oh,
amazing
such a
set.
good book,
That's
dude.
so good, man.
And I love it too because it's Godzilla as the protagonist, so it's completely wordless.
No, completely. It's just
It's
panel
him
by
versus-
panel by panel
Yep.
by panel.
It's just him versus all the creatures that he's killed over the years
And-
in hell.
Oh, it's so good. There's even like one Morphous kind of creature where he splits it in half with his beam, and the creature comes back together.
Yeah.
It's good. Godzilla in Hell's good.
Yeah.
Things I'm unaware
Read
of.
Godzilla's Dragons. They're awesome.
I think I might have done a review of that on the channel.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think I did.
Yeah, Godzilla's awesome.
Yeah, so
Vegeta.
that's going to do it for our 1984 review, complete with tangents. But
Always.
thank you very much for requesting it, Mikey Mnemonic. And
the
thank you
hardest
guys
one
for
we've done,
watching.
Mikey
If you want to become a patron and request a movie like this that we don't appreciate like we should, then click the link in the description box down below. If you enjoyed the video, click that like button and subscribe. Ding that notification bell if you want to make sure you don't miss episodes like this going forward. Until next time, though, I've been Cecil Laird.
I'm Mahalo.
I'm Jaime and Fuego.
And remember, stay scared!